So welcome to Neurotransmitters again. I'm going to talk about dopamine, which is my favorite neurotransmitter. Just like I have favorite brain structures, being the nerd I am, I also have favorite neurotransmitters. So why is this my favorite neurotransmitter? Well, first of all, dopamine is associated or released in relationship to feelings of pleasure, anticipation of reward, and also focus and concentration, which I highly value. That's first of all. The other is it kind of plays for both teams. It's excitatory and inhibitory. It's not the only neurotransmitter that acts like that, but I always think it's super cool when a neurotransmitter does both. Now, a little bit more about the release of dopamine and how the brain operates overall and the impacts that that has on different systems and health issues. So there are different release points in the brain for dopamine, but the primary release point is in a place kind of in the midbrain, in the basal ganglia, which is like midbrain, sort of not quite midbrain, a little bit higher than that. Right? So the substantia nigra in the basal ganglia has the primary release of dopamine. So it has dopaminergic neurons. And it releases those into the motor network, which allows for fine motor control, right? And it works with its friend GABA, which is inhibitory, in order to allow us to initiate. Usually dopamine will initiate in that relationship, so it's excitatory. Well, GABA is inhibitory, so we can do really nice gingerly actions, right? And unfortunately, in Parkinson's disease, we have a death of those neurons, and so that very much influences that fine motor control, and we see the tremors operating as a result of that. In addition, dopamine is released very much to pleasure centers like the nucleus accumbens, which is still in the deep brain. So we feel that really, oh, I like this feeling, I want it again. And also into the prefrontal cortical region, allowing us to have focus. Because of the death of neurons in Parkinson's, we may find that we actually are not just having problems with controlling movement, which can affect mood, but actually the experience of pleasure is harder because the structures associated with pleasure are not getting their dopamine, as well as are not able to focus as much because those centers are not getting their dopamine release. Relatedly, unsurprisingly, low levels of dopamine are associated with depression and also with ADHD. Now, there is little that we can do over the long term in terms of Parkinson's when those neurons do die. However, there has been at least one yoga study looking at Yoga Nidra showing that it could spike levels of dopamine for people with Parkinson's. So it's a bit of relief, reduction of tremor, a pleasant experience. So an indication, possibly, like a recommendation for somebody with Parkinson's. Now, in terms of with ADHD and depression, there's the likelihood that we can actually help the brain to release more so that we feel happier and we're able to concentrate more. We might be able to do that through Yoga Nidra, but certainly there is a copious body of research that shows that exercise helps to release dopamine. So maybe it's just like strong asana that you practice if you're trying to reduce depressive symptoms and support concentration. And of course, in conjunction with other things. That's like not the only thing. We're not just looking at one discrete mechanism and increasing that, nor does the body and brain work in that manner. And finally, I just want to add something that I think is really cool, and I'm just using this as an example. So dopamine is something that we really crave. And if we take a substance of misuse, dopamine levels spike, and then we feel that pleasure and we want it again, right? But like substances of misuse and other things that we take from the outside, often what happens is we need to take more and more to accrue those same effects and feel that same pleasure or that relief if it's something else that's not activating dopamine. What we often find, not always, is if the increase in a neurochemical or a chemical in the body is the result of something we do internally and naturally, so it's endogenous, we make it, we can actually create more the more we do that action with a less effort. Whereas if when it comes from the outside, exogenous, we need more to experience the same effects. So doing it naturally has that real benefit. Anyway, I hope you've fallen in love with dopamine as well. In fact, when you fall in love, you have more of it. Enjoy it, and namaste.